I've been of the view, and I still am, that if you can communicate and talk to people, that's important.
New Detroit brings people from all different parts of the community together to discuss issues regarding race and issues in society which relate to race.
You have to come with this sort of openness and this love in your heart that you want to make this better, and there has to be a compromise. We have to figure out how to solve this, and that's what's so important about New Detroit.
Originally, the New Detroit Committee was established to find out what went wrong in July of 1967, what needed to change, and how to accomplish it. This year, New Detroit celebrates 50 years of continuing that mission.
Because this is New Detroit's 50th anniversary, we thought it was a good time for us to take a look at the organization. Clearly, we're looking forward, but also to look back. And we thought, what better way to do that than to bring together individuals who've been a part of the organization over the course of the years.
I was drafted, and you couldn't help but accept the challenge and the opportunity to help Detroit see its way forward.
I think the rebellion itself was unexpected, but it also provided an opportunity, and obviously one of the opportunities was New Detroit.
And I just can't appeal too strongly to everyone in the outstate area to recognize that this boomerangs. No one benefits, everybody suffers.
The existing institutions didn't predict a riot, and that's why they wanted another institution to come along, and that's when Governor Romney and Joe Hudson and all came together to form the New Detroit.
About 3 days after the problem started in the Blind Pig, I got a call one morning from Governor Romney in my office who said, Joe, this is an obvious attack on the public sector's management of the city, and we think that we need to have the private sector step forward, form a committee, and try to come up with some answers and thoughts for us to put with the legislature and our overall management, how we go forward. And about 15 minutes later, the phone rang, and it was Mayor Kavanaugh, said exactly the same thing.
And I always feel that New Detroit was probably the inventor of coalitions, because it was one of the first coalitions in the country. You know, out of this came the Economic Growth Corporation, the Renaissance, but all of that was a child of New Detroit.
After its creation, New Detroit became an influential institution in the city of Detroit, fighting for racial equality and economic and social equity.
It wasn't enough just to go ahead and say in loud voices and in passionate ways, there's a big problem and it's harming everyone, but that we have to change policy and legislation and funding measures, et cetera, in order to get at the core of how to go ahead and change it. And that's what New Detroit did. And there are numerous examples of that over the course of 50 years.
There was a different type of police department after the 67 disturbance. It became more diverse, and community policing became very, very promoted at that time, and still today is what I believe makes us a very good department in Detroit.
During that era, a lot of important things sprang up. Wayne County Community College is the direct result of New Detroit. Under Dr. Curtis Ivory today, look where the college is now, 70,000 students. Economic Growth Corporation came out of New Detroit. It was called the Economic Growth Council. So New Detroit and the impact that it has had on the city will go on for decades and decades to come.
I saw the removal after the riots of corporations just leaving the city, but now they're coming back.
Today, one of New Detroit's greatest successes and challenges lies in improving the state of education in Detroit.
New Detroit was one of a number of groups that came together in the fall of 2014 and said the condition of the Detroit public schools is intolerable and it's at crisis. And that coalition, at least 10, maybe 15 New Detroit board members were able to come together and to propose to the leaders in Lansing 7 initiatives that needed to take place to try to not only save Detroit public schools, but allow them to thrive going into the future. And today we see some of the fruits of that labor by the recent passage of some legislation in Lansing that erased this burdensome long-term debt that was placed on the kids' shoulders, and a number of other strategic initiatives that the school district is putting in place today.
It's not only getting the kids through high school, which is a challenge in this community, what is about a 20% dropout rate, if not higher, but we also have to look at those kids who want to aspire to be more. And that's why I like Camp Enterprise, quite frankly. It takes a kid from the inner city who's never been on a college campus and says, this is what it is, what life could be outside of your present environment. It's just that introduction. And when you talk to those kids about what Camp Enterprise, the New Detroit initiative started, it's changed their life, their whole viewpoint of what success looks like.
Issues that divide our community can only be changed with the support and leadership of local organizations. For New Detroit's 50th anniversary, a genealogy and storytelling racial healing project continued the mission to bring our community together and heal racial divides.
The piece that's really important is you really understand, at a level I think that you really don't understand, that race was created to divide us, that it is not real. And so you look at your, your DNA, and it comes back and I go, Irish. How'd that happen, right? And other people are going, African.
Anytime you go back and understand where you're from, and these walls that you've built up or distinctions that you've made, you understand that they're not really distinctions. We overlap an awful lot more. I think you begin to at least reach out and understand. I think it can break down some biases, and I think it's just a great step towards healing what's going on in our country today.
Having a conversation about this and having a geneticist, from Beaumont Hospital come in and talk about the fact that, you see that race is not biological. There's no marker for it. That's another thing that happens, another way that we are sort of moving forward and trying to figure out a way to heal our community, because I believe that New Detroit was created to heal the community. A lot of reasons, but to heal, and what better project could we have in the 50th anniversary than to work around healing?
For 50 years, New Detroit has been a shining example of what people from different walks of life can accomplish if they work together.
I think one of the most lasting, powerful things to come out of New Detroit was that people across this city and across the metropolitan area of all kinds of colors and economic status have been brought together by New Detroit, and those relationships are lasting.
If they are all together around common denominators, the numerator may be different, but at least they shared a common interest that I think that once I can listen to you, bring you in the room and give you a voice, then maybe we can look for some kind of ground that we both mutually share together. And I think that's what really made New Detroit so successful.
It's a safe environment.
Right.
There's labor, there's business, there's blacks, there's whites, and of course other minority groups. There's Democrats, there's Republicans, there's suburbanites, there's city folk. And be able to have the comfort and the trust to be able to talk honestly and have a little bit of pushback and what I call intellectual tension.
We will probably, another 50 years from now, let's be honest, there will be another group sitting around this table, hopefully talking about this at another level. Hopefully there's some major resolve, but for the people that I represent, which are poor people living in poverty, I feel as a leader, I have to be at the table to talk about and be about issues that will impact the quality of their life.
The way in which, by bringing people together, we're able to create conversation, which allows us to learn from one another. And in learning from one another, we're able to apply that in everything we do, and it improves the way in which we handle multiple situations throughout the community.
So we feel that the 50 years, there really has been a legacy of leadership. Legacy is a gift from my perspective. It's something that someone leaves for you. And legacy also is the way you treat people. I hope that as New Detroit continues, we continue to work together in the way that we worked together in the past. It's important for us to close the gap. It's important for us to have goals and objectives around racial equity. But it's also important that we continue to move forward in the way that we have in the past.
And now, our 2017 honorees. New Detroit's 50th anniversary Legacy of Leadership honoree is the Max M. and Marjorie S. Fisher Foundation. Tonight we honor Max Fisher's untiring commitment to New Detroit's mission.
The mission of the foundation is to empower and strengthen families and children in need, and we do that mostly here in Detroit. The work that we do centers on empowering others to have access to education and opportunity. One of the main tenets of our foundation is based on something that both our parents have really held sacrosanct to them, is that you don't work on people, you work with people. And our grantees are our partners. And Dad really felt that too. In New Detroit, he felt we come together as a community to work towards solutions, and you need everyone at the table. And that's what we try to do. We try to empower each other in the community.
The Max M. and Marjorie S. Fisher Foundation works with organizations such as Brightmoor Alliance, Forgotten Harvest, Empowerment Plan, Thaw, High Scope, Michigan Children, and United Way.
The work that Father did in this community was really based on the principle of social justice. And that is different than charity. It wasn't just about giving people. It was ensuring that everyone had equal opportunity to education and equal opportunity to jobs and equal access. And that is the very value upon which we have based the foundation as well.
New Detroit is proud to recognize Clark Park Coalition as this year's Social Impact Honoree for providing services and programs that support positive outcomes for children, families, and communities.
The reason why the park is so important, it's like our town square here in Southwest Detroit. Clark Park Coalition is a nonprofit organization that works in partnership with the City of Detroit to keep the park open here in the City of Detroit. It provides many activities and many types of things for youth to do here at the park. Soccer, lacrosse, tennis, arts and crafts, photography class, a nutrition class during the summer. Back in the 90s, Clark Park was not such a friendly place. There was a lot of gangs in the neighborhood. So when we formed a coalition, we worked with the gang kids and we said, listen, we have a diamond in the rough, the park. You guys be the stewards of the park. There's 3 schools around the park and the kids have to cross the park to get to school every day. So we want this to be a safe area for them year round. This park has become the park where you go out and picnic now. You see moms pushing strollers now, which you've never seen. Every day is something new here and exciting at Clark Park.
New Detroit salutes James Group International as this year's business honoree for breaking barriers as an African-American business.
James Group International is a group of operating companies that we have who perform various tasks primarily for the automobile industry. Now the building in which we're operating here is Renaissance Global Logistics. And here we consolidate and ship parts for automobile manufacturers, Ford Motor Company in this case, all over the world where they assemble vehicles.
Founded as OJ Transport with his uncle Calvin Outlaw in 1971, John James has expanded the company to be a truly global enterprise and was the first African-American company to be issued broad operating authority to transport automotive parts and other commodities in the state of Michigan.
Detroit, of course, is the home of the automobile industry, and Detroit has always been a city who's had a lot of black-owned businesses. Most of those businesses historically were service-oriented. So a friend of mine, John Barfield, I think broke the ice when he became a supplier with his janitorial company. I was among the first to become a supplier on the industrial side of the business. I think that's pretty important.
I'm sure my dad would concur with me when I say that if we have achieved anything, it's because we've stood on the shoulders of giants.
I think the thing that I'm most proud of is my wife, Sharon, raised 3 great kids while I was at work, and they all went to college out of state. And I think my proudest moment is when each of the 3 of them came back to the state and became involved with the company.
This year's John Racolta Jr. Leadership and Race Relations Award goes to Tanya Allen, CEO of the Skillman Foundation, for her dedication to education reform, urban revitalization, and public policy to improve the well-being of Detroit's children.
When I was a kid, I always wanted to be a doctor, and when I went to college, I figured out that as a doctor, I could only help a person one at a time, and so I really was very interested in trying to scale that. And one of the best and biggest ways that I thought I could have impact on people and to help people was to work on the issues where they spend their most time. And people, children, families spend their time in 2 places, in schools and in neighborhoods.
Hi, it's so good to see you guys. I'm so happy to be around young people.
Leadership is deep and it's rich. It can show up in small ways and it can show up in big ways. And I think that sometimes when we categorize leadership as a leader or an iconic figure, then what we do is lose the true meaning of what it is. Leadership is about acting and behaving in a way that first shows a love for people and shows a selflessness about a pursuit for a common good.
Now, where are you guys going?
I don't know yet. Probably Walker University.
Through the roughest times in our city, I think we have created some of the most amazing leaders that our city will see. And I wouldn't say that we created them, but they emerged out of that work. And I think that we can see those type of leaders every day in our lives. And I think that we have an immense number of them in the city of Detroit that are untapped and unrecognized. And I believe if we can invest in them, that's where the city's transformation lies. It's really about how do we mobilize people to own this place and to be so invested in this community that they will step out of their comfort zone to make the changes that they would like to see and that they desire, and most importantly, that they deserve.
On behalf of New Detroit, we wish to congratulate all of our 50th anniversary honorees.